Good afternoon. It is November the 12th, 2016, opening day of deer season for many of you hunters out there. It was a very fantastic morning for hunting. We had temperatures drop to the upper 30s to low 40s. So some of us had a very light frost, but many of us stayed frost free and just got a heavy coat of dew. But tonight, leading into Sunday morning, we have a freeze warning that is in effect for all of my forecast counties. I cover all of western Kentucky, all the way up towards Owensboro and Henderson, Kentucky, and then if you were to draw a line southward from Hancock County up there down to Simpson County, which is southeast of Bowling Green, if you were to draw a line of there, all of those counties westward is the area that I cover for the weather, and we are all under a freeze warning. And I don't think people quite understand the definition of a freeze warning. A freeze warning doesn't mean that temperatures can just drop to 32 degrees. That can happen. It happened actually this past week. We had temperatures on Thursday morning drop to 32.7 at my place, but that was not even 32 degrees. It was zero point 0.7 above 32, and it was not 32 degrees or lower for at least 3, 4, 5 hours. That is what the definition of a freeze warning is. You have to have, I don't know the exact duration, but I know that it is a few hours of 32 degrees or lower temperatures. That's what kills the vegetation. It doesn't kill it when it just briefly drops to 32 degrees or lower and then rises back up very quickly. And it has to be sustained for at least 2 or 3, maybe 4 hours or more. So that is what is expected for tonight. We might see temperatures drop as low as the mid 20s for some of our areas. We tend to get those cold favored spots that like to drop lower than the actual forecasted low. I'm forecasting a low of 29 degrees tonight. So many of us will just stay around 32. Many of us might stay 33 or 34, but there will also be some of us that can drop to 26, 27 degrees. So tonight's going to be a chilly night, the coldest night that we've seen since March for our entire region. And so it's going to take a little bit of getting used to, but good news is on the way for any of you that love spring because warmer weather is on the way as we head into this upcoming week. But we'll get to that here in just a second. Right now, we have high pressure overhead of us. That's what is bringing down those cold temperatures because we not only had a trough, as you can tell to the northeast over here, digging in, but we also had a Canadian high dropping down, which is that blue H 1031 millibars. So a fairly strong high for our area. That high just kind of meanders around for a couple of days, but you notice how it moves off towards our southeast, and there's a low pressure system that rides up along the east coast. This has been consistent in the models, and it looks to hit New England with some much needed rainfall for them because not only are they in drought, or not only are we in drought, but they are as well. Now things start to get a little interesting as we start to head into the end of the week. We start to see our temperatures rise ahead of the cold front. You can tell by Friday temperatures on Friday afternoon. Some of us might hit 70 degrees. Some of us might get into the mid 70s. Very unseasonable for this time of the year, but this is normal to warm up ahead of a cold front. It's not normal when you get those several days of persistent, continuous above normal temperature days, which is what we had the first week of November, much of October, if not all of October. And this is very normal. You warm up right ahead of the cold front, and everybody's like, oh, but 70 degrees in November, global warming. No, the cold front's coming through. 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, we had a tornado hit Brookport, Illinois. The anniversary will actually be in 5 days from now, on the 17th of November. Temperatures on that day reached up into the low 80s during that tornado outbreak. And 2 years ago, on that very same date, we had 2 inches of snow on the ground. So the weather fluctuates. So this is not anything to do with global warming. This is just warming up ahead of a cold front, and that is expected. That is normal. You're not going to go cool down ahead of a cold front. But what is also been consistent in the models is that this has been showing up for at least 4 or 5 days now. A fairly strong snowstorm looks to be hitting the northern plains, southern portions of Canada, and it looks to be wrapping around some very heavy convective snow bands in parts of Minnesota, South Dakota, and North Dakota. Some of the snow might be wrapping all the way back around towards Nebraska and Iowa, maybe even a few snow flurries falling in parts of Missouri. That is if the cold air can get around enough. The GFS is always bullish on snowstorms and cold air, so that is a fairly bullish model when it comes to cold air. I want you to look to the west. Now, this is not really out there in the model world. This is 168 hours out, but what's really out there is when you get down towards like the 384 hours out there. But the GFS model is predicting a 1,044 millibar high for next weekend. That would be absolutely phenomenal as a high. I've never seen a high pressure forecasted high be that high. I've seen 1,041 like you see right there around southeast Montana, but I haven't seen a 1,044 before. And when they always set up right there in the Rockies, you tend to see all of these high pressure systems. They just kind of come down to central Colorado and they just kind of hang out there, and then that causes northerly winds for us, and we tend to see those colder temperatures moving in. Notice our isobars just west of that snowstorm. Very, very strong winds will be associated with this snowstorm. That cold air wrapping all the way back behind it. The GFS is getting slower and slower with this. A few days ago, it looked like this might be happening around Thursday, Friday. Now it looks to happen Saturday morning when this rain band moves through. Now, the past models of the GFS have been very bullish on this rain event, showing some very mesoscale rain bands associated with the cold front. But this is the 12Z model showing a little bit weaker, but it might just be going through a phase, and then by the next run it'll be showing those higher rain velocities. But what I want you to look at is that we're starting to see some snow showers wrap around on the backside of some of this rain on the backside turning over to snow. Is that a possibility? It certainly is, especially when you head up into the mountains. But what is making it even more of a possibility is that the GFS has been very consistent on showing another low pressure forming on the southeastern portion of this cold front, and it kind of takes over and moves along the east coast, and it's been bringing that up into the northeast, and this is just the first model run that is starting to show like a really big snowstorm from that low pressure system in like parts of Ohio, western PA, around Lake Ontario, Lake Erie. But I don't think that we'll end up seeing quite that, but I think we'll see something similar to that. We'll see that low pressure system up here start to move out, but that low pressure system is going to be weakening. So as it weakens, it will allow for this one to take over, and it just depends on its track. If it can track parallel to the coast, then we might see more snow in parts of upstate New York. If this can track just straight northward, like it is wanting to, then we'll see most of that snow right there around Ohio, western PA, those areas. But I think it's being pretty bullish on the idea of this happening. This is just the first run of the GFS that has shown this particular solution. So it's something to monitor. It definitely would make sense because you're having the first low pressure system move through, and then that provides the cold air behind it. Then you have another low pressure system move through just in time when the peak of the cold air is hitting those areas, and then it too is going to start to bring in more cold air. Now, what does that mean for us? We get the first cold front, but when that second low pressure system comes through, it doesn't really look to be affecting us. But we have some snow showers being predicted just to the east of my forecast county. So that would be something to monitor. It would be kind of neat if we could get a few wraparound snow flurries with this system. This looks to be a cutoff low, which would bring even more cold air into our region. A cutoff low is cut off from the jet stream. It meanders around. You get a bunch of cloudy, cold, dreary days, and that is what the GFS is predicting. And I want you to notice how it just kind of brings some cold air into our region. Then it tries to show a snowstorm around the 27th, 28th. Probably not going to happen, but I want you to take the idea that the GFS thinks that cold air is coming and that it's going to stay. I did a pattern flip video this past Monday. Any of you watching should go check it out. And it states how I predicted a big flip around Thanksgiving, and I'm still predicting a flip. There is no reason why there shouldn't be a flip. There's no reason why I shouldn't be calling for a flip because the models are showing it. There was a little bit right after I made the video. The models started to trend back towards warmer by the end of November. Now they're starting to trend back colder the last couple of days. So it's something to monitor. Here are our temperature anomalies showing that we our code for most of the time below normal, at least through midweek. Then we see that warm up right ahead of the cold front, and then temperatures dramatically lower. We might see temperatures 20 degrees below normal in parts of Florida down there, where they might see temperatures in the upper 30s to low 40s in some of their mornings. And some of our afternoons might not make it out of the 40s next weekend. A very big outbreak of cold air coming into our region, the biggest one predicted so far this year. And you can tell that it just continues to show below normal temperatures and below normal temperatures. And that was all predicted for the last week of November. And here it is showing up in the models. Now, there is a possibility that it trends back towards warmer for the last week of November, but we keep getting closer to that last week. So confidence is building for that last week, or at least it should be for that time frame. We are in a drought right now, as you can tell by the U.S. Drought Monitor. Still in a moderate drought. This comes out every Thursday. This was as of last Tuesday, and it was still showing a moderate drought for our area. And you can tell that we are, this has been consistent with the GFS to continue to get at least 1 to 2 inches of rain in the next 16 days. This is how far it predicts out as the next 16 days. I can just walk you through a couple of runs. This was the 18Z run as of yesterday. It's showing about 2 inches of rain. Here was the 0Z run this morning showing about 2 inches of rain. Here was the 6Z run this morning showing about 1 inch of rain. And here was the 12Z showing about 1 inch of rain as well. So you get the idea that this is beginning to show not only the pattern flip, but beginning to show at least a more active pattern. When the pattern flips from warm to cold and you get an active pattern, the chances for wintry weather for our region begin to increase dramatically. I think that as we head into December, we will begin to see more wintry type systems. It might be some where we start out as rain and end as snow, or we might just get all rain and areas just a few counties north of us get snow. But the idea is that the colder air will be there. The wintry systems, the storm systems coming out of the south will be coming, but it's just the matter of the storm track. I can't predict a storm track several weeks from now, but I can tell you that it would be favorable. It would be favorable. That is a key word for us to begin to see more cold air and more active weather in the long range. The long range is more than 5 days out. That's what we think is the long range. That's day 6 through infinity. And day 6 and beyond, it looks like the long range would begin to favor that more active pattern. And it might all begin with that cold front coming through by this upcoming weekend, ushering in that really cold air for next weekend as well. We might see temperatures next weekend colder than we are this weekend, and many of you this weekend know that the air that we're getting right now is a little bit below average. So we're going to have to monitor that cold snap, but it might be the first of many, many more to come.